Really silly. All right, we're going.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. It is the Backdrop weekly or bi-weekly design and UX meeting or usability meeting. It is November 5th, 2020. And this meeting, we normally get together to talk about design-related tasks, but moreover, probably user interface-related tasks, considering those in attendance are not actually designers. So so we do what we can, but we always reach out and try to encourage anyone that has those design related skills to join these meetings and speak to some of the makers of Backdrop directly. And if you have suggestions and want to discuss things that are related to design, then this meeting is a holding place for that discussion to happen. This week, we went through the agenda beforehand, and we have a whole bunch of UX related issues and some design related issues, but generally speaking, the issues are mostly all just in discussion phases. And they've also been discussed heavily, but they're all rather inconclusive. A couple of them, like a really simple one, moving the clear log messages to the bottom of the watchdog messages page, issue 2353, for example, has been proposed to move to the PMC. I was like, can we get an answer on this? Because the waffling has gone back and forth enough. And so some of these other issues, we might also start seeing some more of those things just going to kind of executive decisions. One of which is something that Tim is interested in discussing today, which is the safe handling of CSS changes to our existing themes. And that's something that we've kind of gone back and forth on different options. Maybe, Tim, you could kind of summarize
Sure.
what we're looking at right now with that problem.
Yes. So basically, the idea examples are, and we just talked about this one before the meeting, is the issue rate and the agenda right before the white gap between two hero blocks. And the idea is you sort of have two hero blocks with a background color on them in basis. Right now, by default, there's a white gap between them, and the goal was to fix that so that you could get rid of that gap with CSS without breaking any existing sites. Now, Nate today proposed an idea which might safely do that without breaking existing sites. But in our previous discussions, we were less confident of that. And it led to this discussion of how can we make those kinds of changes. And there will be other cases where I think it will be less clear of a safe way to do it. And we have a number of proposals out there. They've been debated extensively. The biggest one has been a method of adding supplemental style sheets that got the most attention. But a lot of people have problems with each of the solutions, but we just haven't sort of settled on anything. Personally, I put a lot of effort into this issue for a while, and then just decided to back off and focus on other things. But now I'm seeing this keep popping up. Anytime somebody raises an issue that even touches on this, it's like, well, we don't have a solution for that. I went back and looked through the discussions earlier this week, and I think it's not so clear to me. One that even on the specific solution of when you have a problem with three or four multiple solutions out there, it's sometimes really hard to come to a consensus because people are sometimes like talking about the merits and demerits of a specific idea rather than sort of yes or no. And as I go back through and look at everybody, I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people that have commented on this issue. And there's probably like on the add supplemental style sheets, I think there were 3 or 4 that, or maybe up to half of them had sort of unequivocally said, sure, that would, they may not love the idea, but it would be okay. There's 1 or 2 that might be sort of strongly opposed to it, but there were a few people who were sort of like, well, I don't like it, but they didn't really say no. And I'm wondering if we're not closer to a possible consensus here. And even I guess my suggestion was that we try to more aggressively, before taking this to the PMC, which maybe we need to, but before doing that, if there isn't some way that we could sort of poll people and get a more clear statement of exactly where they're at, and make sure that we're not sort of that it's not getting a roadblock just because some opinions. For example, Gregory, you know, you have definitely said you don't love the supplemental style sheets, but I don't know that you've ever said, one, that you have a preferred, like there's a better solution, or two, that barring a better solution, you wouldn't accept this solution, right?
Yeah,
And
so that's what I basically said. I said I don't like the current proposals, but I don't have anything better to offer. Like they're
right.
not ideal, but yeah.
And sort of, I've been taking that as a vote no, but maybe that's too strong, and maybe I should give you a chance to clarify that, at least on the supplemental idea. So, anyways, Nate, during the last release cycle, you and I had a long discussion about. I mean, I think you've had reservations about the supplemental style sheet, but again, I don't think you said no completely either.
Yep, same thing. Where
right.
I didn't really have any better ideas to do that. And
So
can you recap what the supplemental style sheet idea is?
Yes, I mean, and let me do this quick first too. I've sort of summarized what I think are the basic different options, one of which is supplemental style sheets. Some people have proposed adding a new theme, and I think actually, Nate, you offered an alternative of like adding a new or a new theme, excuse me, adding a new theme, although you didn't necessarily endorse it. You're like,
yeah, I just said that that's what Drupal did. I'm not particularly a fan of that approach.
Yeah. But there are one or two people who have sort of advocated in this discussion for adding a new theme that fixes these problems. And I think another proposal has been to just make these changes, and like, again, most of them aren't super. They're not, even if they affect some people, they're not going to affect a lot of people. So some people have said we should just go ahead and make changes. We should, announce it, tell people what change we're making, and then let them deal with it. And I guess the default sort of answer is we don't do anything. The supplemental style sheets option is basically that we create sort of a release-based set of new changes to CSS that is identified, and that we track when people installed their backdrop site, that become a config option, and that when if anybody creates a new site, we basically check. Well, no, that okay. But basically, that we only we add these supplemental style sheets to sites that have been created. So if we create a 1.18 supplemental style sheet, it only gets used on sites that were created in version 1.18. And we have experimented with ideas of a UI where in the UI you could set which version you wanted. But I think the latest proposal is that we don't even provide a UI for it. It's just automatic. So if there's a 1.18 supplemental style sheet and a 1.19, yeah, basically you only use those on the version. And we've got a PR that seems to work and do that. And it some people have complained that it's complicated, but the code is not complicated. It's actually, I think, a fairly short PR.
Yeah, I'm still striving, I'm sure everybody is, for some elegant technical solution to this problem. It just usually that's the way things eventually work out. Sometimes it just takes a brainwave to get there. And I think maybe first we can look at the things that we don't necessarily like about this solution and see, discuss like how could we possibly eliminate that problem that we don't like.
Right.
And I think I'm just taking a guess here that perhaps the problem with that suggestion is that you end up with a lot of style sheets that are just like this version of style sheet, this version, 1.18, 1.19, 1.20 style sheets, and that what had been And it could be even worse that possibly where our style sheets are already like componentized. And so potentially like one release of backdrop might result in 4 additional style sheets, one for each component or something like that, that got a new additional change in the latest minor release. I think that that's the primary concern, is that just the number of style sheets becomes pretty unwieldy potentially.
Well, I don't know if that's the primary concern. It's been probably the common one. I think that Jen and I have argued that we don't see that happening, but there is no guarantee. So I understand why people are afraid of that. I think some it's just sort of speculation that there could be a lot of style sheets. We've sort of proposed that, you know, there'd be sort of a policy that, I mean, we wouldn't even, that we would do maximum one per minor release. And we've even suggested that we could do it just once per year, just sort of a policy decision, that we wouldn't be adding these style sheets willy-nilly, right? We could, if the concern is just a plethora of style sheets, that there are ways to sort of control that through discipline. But that's not a technical issue, right?
Yeah, I wonder, so the user interface for like selecting additional style sheets, initially, like even just saying it, I'm kind of like, that doesn't sound good. I could see like we have a reasonable place to put something like that. It would probably be on the theme specific settings page. You know, you go to the appearance page and you control the settings for that theme, and controlling supplemental style sheets could possibly be like a feature of basis, maybe not even a whole system-wide thing. It's just like a configuration option within basis. But what I'm trying to think through here is I wonder if it's possible to like, instead of as new stuff gets added, that would mean new additional style sheets would be kind of permanent until backdrop 2.0, you know, that all of the 118 or 119 style sheets, you'd be adding more and more style sheets for people that installed the backdrop fresh from a new site. And I don't think this is possible, but I'm trying to make this technically like exploratory. Like, would it be possible to have backwards compatible style sheets instead of adding additional ones? So if you install backdrop fresh, there's no additional style sheets, and it's only when a new release comes out that there's like, here's the backwards compatibility for 118, here's the backwards compatibility for 119. So you're adding additional style sheets for backwards compatibility, not to get the latest version. And so if you wanted to, as a user, you could say, just fast forward me to the version that has no supplemental style sheets, and all of the backwards compatibility ones are just not added. And that way, the out-of-box behavior isn't to have a whole bunch more style sheets, it's to have fewer. And if you're updating your site, you get supplemental ones to maintain the compatibility. That seems like that could possibly work. Then as a more aggressive person, you could also potentially say, just always use the latest and never bother with the supplemental ones, because me as an end user, I haven't sub-themed, I haven't done any customization or workarounds. I just want whatever core is providing to be the latest. And if that changes the way my site looks, I'm okay with that. So that would just make it so that all of the modifications we made to core files would just always be in place. However, I can't figure out how that would work, like,
Right.
because you can't have backwards compatible style sheets that provide additional rules. What you need is rules not to exist at all. And so you need to like take out the rules from the old sheet. And I don't think CSS is capable of doing that.
Right.
So back in August, when I was on leave, I had a little bit of thought of that. So I started thinking about different solutions and considering the things that people proposed in the issue, in the queue. So sorry for the brain fart now, and excuse my language. I'll try to recall what I thought there. First thing is that the goal here is that we don't load the code for new installations, and the idea is that new installations should have the fix. So in the case of the hero blocks, the right thing to do is to fix the problem, right? Now the concern is that how we won't break the existing sites for people that already built with the previous problem and have accounted for that. Right. And then I started thinking of existing features or ways that Backdrop works inherited from Drupal that would help us with that, right? One of them is subthemes, which is a cleaner way than, according to me, the way that I think subthemes is a sort of like a cleaner way to implement this. Well, that's a personal opinion, you can argue, right? The other way that I was thinking about it is that we usually like BW Panda mentioned something about overlays and dialogues last week. So this brought to mind the thing that if we want to remove a feature from core that comes from the birth of Backdrop from D7, right? We removed certain modules, and what we've done is we moved those into contrib, retaining the names so people can install them. And I already checked, and we have a project called basis_contrib in contrib. So I thought that maybe we could create a basis theme in contrib. And I know that it would have conflicts, but in theory, it should be able to be installed, right? And maybe with each release, if we break things, we also create a release for that contrib module. And we already have the project installer, which automatically does things. So we can we wouldn't have to get people to go through the installer and pick the version that they want, but we could do that in the background for them. So I haven't put all these ideas into a consistent plan because all of them had drawbacks, like for one category of people or the other. Talking about people with existing sites and people just creating a new Backdrop site. But the other idea was that maybe when we do the update, we copy the existing basis theme into, or we ask people to copy it into the contrib basis, sorry, to the theme folder so that they keep the existing basis theme.
Yeah,
because
interesting.
contrib takes precedence over core.
Mm-hmm.
So, but our installation instructions say rename the core folder and add the new folder, like extract the new core folder. So now our instructions need to say, like there's a lot of manual things that need to happen. And we need to account for the manual installation versus the automatic installation that we have in core. Anyway, so these are raw ideas, and I hope I didn't confuse people. There were many ideas, but there's other solutions. I haven't fleshed everything out because, as I said, I've hit roadblocks each time that I was thinking about things. But see how we have some screenshots in the issue team where we have a drop down that people select the styles in the supplemental. This resembles a lot like the project installer. If there's many versions of the contrib project, people can select which version they want. So we already have a mechanism in place that we can reuse. Anyway, I haven't fully fleshed out, as I said, things, but maybe if we put our collective brains together, maybe we'll figure out something a little bit better. It's just, yeah.
Your suggestion, Gregory, of changing the instructions to like copy the entire theme gave me an idea that I don't think anyone will like, but I want to put it out there that what if like to solve this problem of like, oh, we're going to break people's existing sites, and break existing sites is all based upon the premise that they have subthemed or add additional CSS on top of basis. What if we take that away? What if there is no subtheming of core themes? Like, if the premise of the problem is that core can't make fixes or changes to its themes because of the potential of subtheming, like if you want to subtheme something, it has to be in your themes directory. The stuff that's in core can't be subthemed. Like if it's in contrib, then it can. And then that enforces a new behavior where if you want to make minor changes on top of basis, you can subtheme it if you copy it into the contrib directory first. Or if you want to just copy it and then just hack on it, that's also a sanctioned, valid approach to doing stuff. And it would just change the paradigm around what basis was originally created for, because it was literally called basis because it's made to be a base theme. But we could solve the problem of core can't make changes, at least for the theme, I'm not really sure about all of the modules, because you could still have all of the problems of, as a module, I'm providing some theme stuff, and then as a theme, I'm making assumptions about that. But that seems less frequently a problem than like Basis making changes, and we would just want to fix some problems in Basis and we can't.
So people in GovCMS land, where I'm a support agent, have concluded to that same sort of like solution. They used to provide a static kit, UI kit, where people would sub-theme it, and it would come with the distributions. But for a different reason, they actually wanted to stop supporting it. And they said, look, we're removing it. It's not going to be in the distribution anymore. If your theme is based on that, here's a repo. Take a copy of it, put it in your folder, and then it would still work. But we don't maintain it anymore. So this is not the case for us and Basis, but it's a similar conclusion to, or solution, I should say, to what you just proposed, that if you want to sub-theme it and it's core, you know that we will be changing it so that future sites are fixed properly, right? And that is all good, but there's one principle that we are conflicting here with, which is the backwards compatibility thing.
So I want to interject here, though, that my own personal use case or concern about this, most people think this is about breaking sub-themed sites, and for me, that's not the case. For me, I'm much less concerned about people who are sub-theming Basis. One, because I think they have the technical skill to fix these problems if they do come up. Two, I think if you've sub-themed Basis, it's likely that your override is going to override whatever we do in core anyways, or at least it's possible. So it's less likely to be a problem. My concern has been, I have been trying to, like, I spend a lot of time trying to figure out ways that I can take backdrop out of the box and make it look good without doing any sub-theming, without adding contrib themes, right? And I would like for Basis to be very flexible and useful to somebody who isn't doing a sub-theme. And my fear is that somebody who, for example, that wants to do this 2 hero blocks next to each other, they can't do that right now without a sub-theme. I mean, they can. This is an easy problem to fix in a sub-theme. So I'm not worried about sub-themers because they could fix this in a few seconds. I'm worried about the person who doesn't want a sub-theme and they want to put 2 hero blocks. And I'm concerned that somebody tried to do that a release ago and it didn't work. So they created some sort of a hack, you know, by adding extra spaces or putting their text closer to the margin to compensate for the fact that there's space there that shouldn't be, or, you know, those kinds of hacks. And that if we update Basis, it's going to affect their site, even though they have no sub-theme, and they, you know, so now they've got to go through and like figure out a hack to fix what we, but that maybe that's just the wrong use case, right? This is my idea of how somebody should use Basis. And it's, you know, we could easily argue, well, that that's not really what Basis was intended for. So my current position, you know, if we don't solve this problem, my position is that Basis is not good for that kind of a user, right? I would like recommend that if you're trying to just create an out of the box configuration and you're doing a lot of customizations, don't, you know, Basis is better for sub-theming. Don't use it for that kind of stability. Go to contrib. And I have like been making all of these changes I want to make to the Tatsu theme. Other people can as well. We could use, you know, we could go ahead and update the Basis contrib theme, you know, for those people. So that's one solution. I kind of don't like it, but it's a valid idea to say that, you know, Basis just isn't going to be that stable out of the box. We need to make updates, and if you really want to rely on it being stable, you're either going to have to be able to sub-theme it, or you're going to be able, or you should use some contrib solution, which we can, you know, we can create stability in contrib because we can have different versions.
Yeah.
So the thing is, these ideas seem like more clean from a code and maintenance perspective, and I know that there is a way to do it. My problem was that how do we automate that for the people that like don't care about the specifics, like people that are, so problem one is that, not problem, fact one is that we need to fix broken things, as you said, in core. It is actually a broken thing, We need to fix it. No one disagrees on that. We know what the solution is. The blocker is previous sites, right? And respectively, like one of our principles is like we respect existing sites, right? And we don't make it hard for them. So now, how do we automate things? As you said, there's people that are knowledgeable enough and they know how to fix it, but there's those that don't. Or it could be a site owner who has learned enough to update the site, but does not. He needs to, or not he. They need to engage a developer partner, which costs money, right? So, and this is why people choose Backdrop, right? Stability, and this is what we claim in our principles that we value, right? So I don't expect us to find a solution today. It's good that we sort of like rehashed the possible solutions, but I think we should, like, some of these are really, like, some of these ideas have really good prospect, and we should try to see, like, to solve it in a way that is both elegant and less and painless for end users. That's what I was saying.
So
It
I'd like
needs,
to talk,
yeah, sorry, it needs a little bit of time and thought. We should not rush into a solution, but think a little bit more about it.
this has been useful, and I have heard some interesting some ideas that give me things to think about. I'd like to spend, we're running out of time already, to talk about how to unstuck this issue, or what's our policy for now, right? Because so my fear is another issue came up. Well, the issue of providing a breakpoint for menus. There's a pull request for this problem. It's not 100% clear to me that this PR, that the PR for that pull request involves adding, if you can create a custom setting for the breakpoint for a menu, and if you do that, it adds some CSS. It's not clear to me that issue should be tied into this issue, because I think that issue is kind of, it's self-contained and it doesn't have backward compatibility problems. But immediately somebody raised the point that maybe it does, and we can't really solve that problem until we solve this one. And I don't know if that should be true or not yet, but I'm afraid.
Yeah. So it is.
But I'm
so
afraid that other issues are going to keep getting muddled with this one, whether or not they should be, especially as long as there's no policy, right? If we don't. So that was one of my concerns. And so the question is, like, what do we say in the meantime? Maybe we just have to hash through that other issue and determine, should it really be connected to this one or not, and maybe and do that work. That's fine, but I'm afraid it's going to keep coming up. Like, as long as this is so ambiguous. One of my thoughts was, one of my thoughts was maybe we weren't as far away from a consensus on supplemental style sheets as I thought, but this conversation reinforced to me the opposition to this idea of supplemental. I don't think Nate or Gregory, either of you, have ruled that out as a solution, but
Nope,
you're
still haven't.
But you're still grasping for new solutions.
Exactly.
You're still not ready to get behind it. So I was going to propose that we, first of all, just we list several, what the current options are, and we sort of give everybody a chance to, like, rank them, or say, with one option being, like, do nothing, to get a better sense, like, of whether or not, how close we are to some sort of a consensus, and not to call that binding, right? But just to give everybody a chance to rank, to not, because too many people have said, I don't like this solution, without saying how they would solve it. And so what I'm proposing is that we say, hey, we're thinking about sending this to the PMC, but before we do that, we want to give everybody a chance to sort of come down definitively and on where they're at, because maybe we don't need to send it to the PMC. Maybe push come to shove, we can get behind a common solution. It's just we haven't asked people to do that yet. That was one solution. However, this conversation has reminded me that, like, if we tried to do that today, there might be solutions that we haven't thought of yet. And it might, the two of you might have things in your, that you're still muddling in your brain, so that might be a better solution. And I don't want to prematurely, cut that discussion off either.
Yeah, take it to vote before all the options are discovered.
So the thing So I agree, but two things. What most people vote for is not necessarily going to be the best solution. And there's the dilemma there of these are three actual problems: the one with the alignment of the images, the one with the hero blocks, and the one with the menu breakpoints. So these are the three that came to mind that are all related to that. We need to fix them. We need to fix them properly. But as I said,
Right. I don't think there's even consensus, though, that we need to fix them. As I said,
oh,
I think there's at least one person in the issue queue who's actively saying, and I think a little bit of it comes down to how you view the purpose of basis. I think some
Yeah.
people view it as a simple theme that's there to sub-theme, right? And sub-themers can fix all these problems on their own. We don't need to, right? So, like, one thing that might be helpful is if we had a statement saying what is our goals with basis. What is our intended use of basis? I have an intended use, which is I believe basis should be a flexible tool for a beginner site builder to create an attractive theme without having to sub-theme or without having to go to contrib. Because the thing is, it's like a lot of people might say, well, why not just do this in contrib? And I'm like, we're 95% of the way there in core. Why should we push somebody to contrib for something that we're so close to being able to do in core, right? If we fixed a few things, it would be so much better. Anyways. But that's a policy decision, right? It's like, is that
yes.
the intention of basis or not? And I don't know that everybody thinks it is. So.
Yes, and I think from memory, I can recall, I think at least Olaf and another person from Europe that have mentioned that they are basically something in basis all the time. That's how they build their sites. So as I said, again, you have groups of people that are, as you said, some people are using it, some people don't care about it, and they just create their custom themes. So my main goal is how to disturb the general community a little bit less. I mean, people like Olaf, sort of like they're the what you call it, the faithful followers of Backdrop. They're not going to be upset, and they will know how to solve their problems. But still, I don't want to upset the broader community if that's what they're doing, right? If they're if they're actually sub-theming. Yeah. Okay. To sum it up, as I said, it's like we're not objecting again. We all think that these things should be solved. We don't diminish the importance of coming up with either a policy or a solution for that. It's just that I wouldn't want us to rush into things. Maybe if it was an initiative, some people would push more. I don't know. It's like I'm not sure. And it comes down to time and figuring out the golden solution, as I would say. But yeah, I agree that we should give people the what you call it, allow them either time or I don't know to express the pros and cons, because yeah, it's a hard thing. See, even Nate now is just thinking about things, how to solve that.
More options, yeah.
Yes. See. Yeah.
Like, do you want to hear another one?
Yes. Sure. Yes. Go ahead, please.
Okay. So another one is that using contrib, we could revive the basis project and make a new version of basis at every single minor release, basis 118, basis 119, basis 120, and they would just be locked copies of basis at that version of Backdrop. And then if you used core basis, it would always just be the latest basis. And if you wanted to lock into stability, you could download the contrib version that was locked into your current release, or whatever. And that would make it so that basically, we could maybe promote it somehow, saying this is an alternative. But also, if somebody retroactively was like, I updated to 120 and it broke my site because of changes in basis, they would have an immediate course of action of downloading the contrib version of 119, and that would fix their site.
Yes.
That's again is kind of aggressive, that it's like everybody gets the latest until it breaks something, and then you would have a easy bailout.
As I said, yeah, and actually, as I said, we could have the option. I know it's a snowflake, but it's a special thing, like it's a core thing. But we could even expose the available contrib options for previous versions within the theme settings of basis. We could actually have the core basis settings thing pull the versions from that specific contrib with the locked versions and say revert to this version, which would in the background transparently put it in the the contrib
Themes directory. Yeah.
yes, and actually lock the version so that no updates are reported because it
Right.
breaks.
Yeah, we could only do that in cases where installer module was available on the site, but yeah.
So my final thoughts on this for today, I think are, I'm interested in some of these solutions. However, I'm skeptical that any of them are going to suddenly build a consensus.
Yeah.
And so I'm still, the question in my head is how do we ever come to a decision on this? How do we decide at what point to like push it to the PMC, or at what point to have to do kind of a vote, even if it's non-binding. But anyways, we don't have to answer that question today, but that's what I'm more concerned about the ambiguity about whether or not there will even be a solution to this than I am about the particular solution right now, because my fallback solution is go to contrib, but I don't want this issue to keep coming up in the issue queue, and blocking other issues and even in places where it shouldn't be. And yeah, so it's like, how do we come up with some sort of at least a policy or a statement about where this issue is going that will make life easier for us? So again, let's not try to answer that right now.
Okay. Well, let's maybe leave it actually at that. We're at 1 o'clock, which is time for 1 o'clock Pacific, time for the next meeting, which is the dev meeting. Are you guys okay with leaving this discussion?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, for now.
Yeah, and we have the recording so the rest of the people in the community can view and then come back with opinions or new ideas.
Yep. Okay. Anything else you guys want to talk about or mention before we end?
No.
Okay. Well then, thank you everybody out there on the internet for watching. We really appreciate your guys' views, and do let us know if you have additional thoughts based on this conversation. What is the issue number for this CSS overrides issue, just for following up?
4167.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you guys later. And yeah, we've got the dev meeting coming up just a couple